Good morning. So today we're going to talk about the elements of a short story. So basically, the elements of a short story are the setting, characters, plot, conflict, point of view, and the theme. Now let's talk about the setting. The setting could be a place, time, weather conditions, social conditions, or mode of atmosphere. When you talk about place, it talks about geographical location, where the action or the story is taking place. When you talk about time, it is when the story happened. It talks about historical period, time of day, year, or etc. Talking about weather condition, it could be rainy, sunny, stormy, or even cloudy. And we have social conditions. It talks about the daily life of the characters. Does the story contain local color? Or it focuses on speech, dress, mannerisms, customs, etc. And we have the mode of atmosphere. So settings can be identified through the atmosphere. What feeling is created at the beginning of the story? Is it bright and cheerful or dark and frightening? Next, we have the characters. Character is a person, or sometimes even an animal, who takes part in the action of a short story or a piece of literary work. It could be main characters, those who are most important in the story, or the minor characters, which is usually static or unchanging. Characters are identified according to principality. We have protagonist and antagonist. The difference between protagonist and antagonist is protagonist is the character with whom the reader empathizes, while antagonist is the character that goes against the protagonist. Let's identify characters according to development. It has two types, the dynamic and the static. When you say dynamic, a character that exhibits noticeable development, while static, the character who exhibits no changes and no development. Characters also will be identified according to personality. It could be round or flat. When you say round, the character displays different or multiple personalities throughout the story, while when you say flat, it is a character that reveals conventional traits who remains the same throughout the story. Let's talk about characterization. Characterization is the method used by the author or the writer to reveal the personality of the characters. The characters are revealed according to actions of the character, thoughts, descriptions of the character, descriptions of the author, or the descriptions of other characters. Then we have plot. It is the sequence of events in the story or a play. There are kinds of plots: the linear plot, circular plot, and medias res. First up, let's talk about linear plot. It moves with the natural sequence of events where actions are arranged sequentially. For circular plot, is a kind of plot where linear development of the story merges with an interaction in a chronological order to show an event that happened in the past. And lastly, we have in medias res, a kind of plot where the story commences in the middle part of the action. There are 5 stages of a short story. The first stage, we have an introduction, where in the beginning of the story where the characters and the setting is revealed. Second, we have the rising action. This is where the events in the story became complicated and the conflict in the story is revealed, or events between the introduction and climax. The climax is the highest point of interest and the turning point of the story. The reader wonders what will happen next. Will the conflict be resolved or not? Then we have polling action. It's the events and complications begin to solve themselves. The reader knows what has happened next and if the conflict was resolved or not. It shows events between climax and the denouement. Lastly, the denouement. It is the final outcome of untangling of events in the story. It is the part wherein it talks about the end part of the story. Let's talk about conflict. Conflict is the opposition of forces which ties one incident to another and makes the plot move. There are 2 major types of conflict, the external and the internal conflict. First, let's talk about external conflict. It is a struggle with a force outside oneself. An external conflict can be categorized as man versus man versus society, man versus nature. So when you say man versus man, a type of conflict where one character in the story has a problem with one or more of the other characters. For man versus society, it is a type of conflict where a character has a conflict or problem with some element of society, the school, the law, the accepted way of doing things, and so on. And for man versus nature, it is a type of conflict where a character has a problem with some natural happening, like snowstorm, typhoon, bitter cold, or any elements common to nature. And let's talk about internal conflict. It is a struggle with oneself. A person must make some decision, overcome pain, quiet their temper, resist an urge, etc. Internal conflict can be identified as man versus self. It is a type of conflict where a character has trouble deciding what to do in a particular situation. Next, we have the point of view. It is the angle from which the story is told. There are types of point of view. First person point of view is a story told by the protagonist or one of the characters who interacts closely with the protagonist or other characters using pronouns I, me, we, etc. Next, we have the stream of consciousness. The story is told so that the reader feels as if they are inside the head of one character and knows all their thoughts and reactions. And lastly, the third person omniscient or the third person. The narrator tells the story from an all-knowing point of view. He can move the character to character, event to event, having free access to the thoughts, feelings, and motivations of his characters, and introduces information where and when he chooses. And lastly, we have the theme. The theme is the controlling idea or the central insight. It is the author's underlying meaning or main idea that he is trying to convey. The theme may be the author's thoughts about the topic or view of human nature. That's all about the elements of short story. I hope you have learned a lot. Thank you for listening and watching.